a chance and do that. So that brings us to pedigrees. How many of you have pedigreed rabbits? Everybody? Just about everybody? Okay. A pedigree is a record of ancestry that documents 3 known generations. I've got a couple of pedigrees up here. Here is one that I got from a guy that I bought a rabbit from. It was printed with a computer program. And y'all can look at these if you want to. You've probably seen them done like this. And then this is another one that came from a computer program. You see how they can be like this way, or they can be this way. You know, that the computer programs have various settings. And then this is an old-fashioned handwritten pedigree. And a pedigree can be handwritten. It can come off a little $8 book that ARBA sells. You don't have to have a computer program, kids. You can write out your pedigrees, and they are just as valid as a printed pedigree. I actually saw an auction rabbit that went for $1,500, had the pedigree written out on a piece of notebook paper. So obviously it wasn't why the rabbit sold for $1,500. The presentation of the pedigree was not what the value was. The value was in the breeder's reputation, and the actual quality of the animal presented, which is kind of the way rabbits go. Now, not all pedigrees contain information necessary to apply to register your rabbit. So ask if you're buying a rabbit. I bought some rabbits and was disappointed when the 3rd generation was blank. Breeder's like, I didn't know you cared. I was like, yeah, I thought it was pedigree. You said it was? Well, it is. I said, what happened to the 3rd generation? Well, I don't know. I don't have the 3rd generation. So ask these questions. You have to be explicit in your questions if you're going to get what you want. Not all the pedigrees will contain what you need to register the rabbits, like weights might be missing. I'm just trying to think of what else might have been missing. Some of the rabbits in this pedigree even had no names. Now, if that's the case, sometimes the registrar will just put the ear number as the name, or vice versa. You know, if they just have a name and no ear number, well, she'll just write the same thing in both blanks. You can kind of fudge on that, but you have to know what color they are, and you have to know how much they weigh. You do not have to necessarily know when they were born unless it's the initial rabbit. Records can be incomplete, and people will still say the rabbit's pedigree. They can say the word import. That means we don't really know. It didn't come with a pedigree. It just came from overseas. Okay, so who knows? That's not okay for registering, but those rabbits can still be extremely expensive. It has nothing to do with how they're priced or the value of them. A pedigree is not necessary to show a rabbit in an ARBA show, and it is not necessarily necessary to win top honors. We don't ask for pedigrees when we enter rabbits. I've never been asked to show a pedigree. So that the judge judges the rabbit based on what the rabbit physically is, not based on its paperwork. What it is, it's a reflection of breeder record keeping and management of genetic lineage. It's a glimpse into potential genotype of an animal. Genotype is what is genetically present, not what is seen. So if the rabbit has dilutes in its pedigree, like blues, then it's an indication that there is a possibility that the black rabbit could throw blues. It is not guaranteed, however, because it's the genotype and not the phenotype, which is what is actually expressed. Sometimes you can see recessive colors like chocolate, which can be bad for certain programs, great for others. Albinoism, non-extension genes like tortoise should be noted in the pedigree when they're present, because that helps you. It helps you to match that rabbit up with what is appropriate to breed it to. What a pedigree is never a guarantee of quality. Just because an animal's pedigree doesn't mean it's a good one. It's not a guarantee of performance in showing or breeding. And it should contain the name of an animal, of each animal, the ear number of each animal, the variety of each animal. The varieties do not have to be recognized varieties. The weight, the senior weight of each animal, it does not have to conform necessarily. Like, for example, there can be a false dwarf that's of half a pound overweight. Having a false dwarf in the pedigree is not going to prevent your rabbit from being registered. Having a Charlie or Sport in the pedigree is not going to prevent your rabbit from being registered, and should be noted if it is there. Be honest, guys. I mean, if you're using a false dwarf, state it. If you're using a Charlie or a Sport, state it. What is optional? Any generations past the 3rd. My first rabbits came from California, from a woman who is still an ARBA judge today, and she was very, very proud of her paperwork. And that pedigree was a trifold. It folded out this wide. It was 5 exhaustive generations. Everything was registered. Everything was a grand champion. I mean, this woman was very proud of what she had done in terms of her paperwork. And it was very impressive. It was typed out. This was before computer programs. It was typed out, and she had blue ink for bucks and red ink for does. It was impressive. But I've never, ever, I wish I still had those pedigrees. I don't, but.
So Ken Tracks, it's a $20 pedigree system online. They offer 8 generations online and 5 generations printed out.
Yeah,
So-
yeah, so that's kind of nice. So to see the genetic potential in a line, it's kind of cool to have that many generations. Wins are optional. The breeder does not have to list the wins. Any birth dates other than the actual rabbit that you're talking about doesn't have to be on the pedigree. Any registration numbers or grand champion numbers are optional. The ARBA is not responsible to research these if you simply do not know them. They will process the registration and simply leave the numbers off.